So good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Amber, for that very nice introduction. Wanted to speak this morning about the presentation on. Okay. On one of the topics that came up through the polling a couple of months ago that many of you responded to as far as what you would like additional assistance in learning on. So one of those was performance reviews or performance management. This is something that is very near and dear to my heart. And I've seen a lot of progress. I've seen a lot of positive things happen from a good performance management overall system. And most especially the ongoing and daily communication and reinforcement of goals. So the purpose today is to provide clear, direct feedback that helps the employee focus on the established standards, company and department objectives, and establishment of job accountabilities. So as I said, this is not a one-time process. This is an ongoing day in and day out part of your organization. And it's really critical that your managers and supervisors understand the growth and development of their team and the success of your overall company objectives is part of this process. It's not a one and done. It's on a day in and day out basis. So the agenda for today is the objective of the performance review or appraisal, some best practices. What is the landscape currently of performance reviews or performance appraisals? We have to discuss compensation. That is very, very important. That can either be tied into your performance appraisal process or done separately. So benefits of a performance review or appraisal, the types of performance reviews, there are many. And of course, the preparation and goal setting that goes into a good performance management process. The feedback process, which is where I'm going to spend a lot of the time this morning along with goal setting. But I do want to cover some of these basics here today. HR is objective. Yes, we do own performance management. The entire team owns it, but we are the drivers. And of course, what are the next steps? So the objectives of a performance review and appraisal is an accurate and actionable evaluation of performance. What does that look like? So setting actionable goals and objectives to increase the employee's performance, the ability to grow into other positions or jobs with increased responsibilities. I've seen this before in the hospitality industry where we developed a career ladder or a career-focused program through the EDD and through the CHLA, and we're able to move individuals through different jobs and increase their earning potential and also their learning. So provide clear, direct feedback that helps the employee focus on the established standards, the company and departmental objectives, and of course, their own job accountabilities. So some of the best practice is what is the objective of the performance appraisal for all employees? What do we want to be able to communicate to our employees through the performance management process? How are the company objectives and goals included at all levels of the organization? So I'm sure you've all heard one team, one company. You have objectives as far as a company that you want to achieve, whether it's increased revenue or it's bringing additional companies into your business or any number of things. And how does that translate not only from the C-suite, but how does that translate down through your senior level, your junior level, and your hourly employees? What specific metrics will you use to measure performance? Is it the same for everybody? Or does that have to be tailored specifically for an hourly employee or a salaried employee or an executive? What is the rating scale? What does that mean? Are they effective? Are they meeting the standard? Is it? What is it? That you have to determine. Okay, what is the minimum standard? Is it fully effective? Is it meeting the standards for the job? And then do you go above that? Do you go below? Those are the things that you need to determine. What does that look like? And that's going to be part of your culture, part of the language of your organization. What does that look like for you? Is the appraisal subjective or objective? Because sometimes you get the personalities involved in the appraisal process, and we want to make sure that we are clear and direct, but we also want to be objective. We want to make sure that we are treating everybody equitably and equally across the board. How is the final rating for the employee's performance determined once each area is evaluated? Again, I've seen it where the appraisal will come out overall fully effective based upon each particular area that's rated. And the manager says, well, they're outstanding. And you have to go back and ask those questions and say, well, you said they're just meeting the standards. How can they be then outstanding? Or vice versa. You have outstanding all the way through the performance appraisal, and then they're just meeting the standard. So you need to be clear to that. In addition, the employee has a part of the process. And do you include that? Do they participate in a self-appraisal? This for me is a game changer. And this is something I did many, many years ago in a major retailer down in Southern California that I worked with to start including that self-appraisal process. Our colleagues and employees want to be heard. We want to have an opportunity to say, hey, I've done a great job. I've accomplished things. I've learned things. I participated. I helped improve our department. I helped improve our company. And I deserve to have that recognition for that. That is very important. We all want that. Even though those of us who are in senior level or have been in senior level positions, it's an opportunity to have that dialogue with your direct supervisor. Are there ways to get more feedback from others, such as using a 360 assessment process? This can be very eye-opening, especially when you have areas of opportunity where your team is having some challenges with their direct supervisor. And you're hearing the same ongoing concerns being raised by that group of individuals. That is then telling you there is something more that's happening that's underlying what you're hearing, and you have to get to the bottom of that. And I've worked with Lois Lang before, and many of you probably know Lois. And we've done some 360 reviews and have gotten some pretty significant responses and have been able then to use that data and that information to work and coach that supervisor to then help bridge those difficult dealings that they've had with their team and vice versa. And also using that as an opportunity to go back to the employee and be able to have those conversations to then open up those dialogues even more with their supervisor. Yes, Roy?
I don't know if you're taking questions.
Absolutely.
Okay. I have an idea what a 360 assessment process is, but can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, we're going to go through that very specifically, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. So is pay for performance part of your appraisal process, or would this be separate? Again, each company has to make their own decision how they tie their performance management process into any type of compensation adjustment, whether that's separate depending upon your business cycle. Are you a mid-year, like a July 1 to June 30th? Are you a calendar year? What does that look like? Because everybody's fiscal budgets are a little bit different. And what are you taking into account? What are you looking at as far as wage ranges? Have you done your wage assessments using a variety of different metrics that are available? And I know we have different metrics available here through opportunity standards laws that you can use. There's lots of other resources. So again, that's something you have to decide on your own. What is the annual COLA adjustment? Does anybody ever look at that? That's really important. You know, a couple of years back, it was 8%. And I know many CEOs and COOs were like, ooh, that's going to be tough for us to give an 8% increase, you know, and do we adjust it down to maybe 4, 5, and 6 or 3, 4, and 5%? But it gives you a benchmark in which to look at, and then also looking at what your compensation levels are out there as far as what you're finding out in the marketplace and making those calls. So you can look at those things to use also as an additional benchmark. Oh. I go back to. So the question that we wanted to put into the survey today, into the presentation is, does your organization currently have an active performance management process? Either yes or no, we're looking to establish one, or you're looking to revise our program. So if you want to take a moment and record your response.
So you can use your camera for the QR code, or you can join manually by typing that in when you go to Slido.
And then you have to hit send. Once you've selected your answer, hit send.
Maybe your organization doesn't do performance management processes because that's not within your realm and scope of your organization, but if you do. So looks like overwhelmingly, yes, 80%.
So when you try this,
Stephanie Adams says they're looking to revise.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's good, Stephanie. Glad to hear that you're doing that. 10% no, okay. So as part of this process, if anybody would be interested in more of a one-on-one discussion about performance management, certainly reach out to Amanda, email her, or give her a call, and she can set up a time where we can brainstorm together and discuss what you're looking for, or if you're just starting from the very beginning, what the steps need to be to start one. Okay. And looks like, well, the same 9% they're looking to establish one. Okay. Oh, but down to 64%.
they changed to revise.
Okay, we're looking to revise. Okay, and that's good. And there's nothing wrong with revising your performance management process, because does your company stay the same year after year? It grows. It's a ongoing process. Just like Jim Collins says in the book, Good to Great. You're never going to be a great company. You're always striving to be a great company. So your organization needs to change and flex. But if you do change your performance management process, what do you need to do? You need to communicate those changes to your team, right? What does that look like? And what do those benchmarks look like? Okay, so the landscape of performance review and appraisals has gone through a great shift. And I'm talking to several individuals, and they said, you know, we don't do performance management, we just do goal setting, and we have our goal setting meetings and so forth. And that's great. So in doing some research, I found an SHRM article from McKinsey surveys indicates that most CEOs do not find that appraisal process helps to identify top performers. So is that somebody, your CEO, that you want to get involved with as far as if you're going to do a change to your performance management process or start one, that's gonna be your first person to talk to. Half of the employees think their managers won't get the performance review right. Anybody think that's correct? Yeah. Okay. They don't get it. They don't understand what it is that I do. Yes, Amber?
Does that percentage go down when they participate in the?
It does significantly. And especially if they have received the information as far as what the performance management all entails, and it matches the job description. So if you have a good job description and your performance management process, and you're evaluating that person like to like, and they have a say in how they're being perceived and how they're being reviewed and being part of the discussion, it makes that goal setting process 100 times more beneficial and much more effective. So many organizations have ceased the processes, they do not see the benefits. But yet, on the other hand, they're also saying, okay, well then how can we compensate or look at pay strategies if we don't know how the person has performed? Is it just, again, subjective? Well, I like this person, so therefore they're going to get this. So there's nothing concrete that they can use to establish that change in compensation. And employees see this as a numerical system that coincides with financial increases. It's two different conversations. And Roy, I know we've talked about performance appraisals and performance management and compensation and so forth. And it definitely has to be two different conversations. Yes.
Kim with the city of Houston said, we are a government agency. When an employee has reached the top level, level E, managers tend to stop doing annual evaluation as there is no more raises to give them. I want to start those evaluations back up again.
I would agree. And I know it's a challenge for many organizations, and I've faced the same thing in my career, and probably many of you have done the same, where that person has topped out as far as their compensation or their wage earning potential. And either A, are we able to move that person to another position where they can then continue to grow in their compensation? But a person still wants to hear how they're doing. They still want that feedback. And they want to have that information to say, I'm still continuing to be relevant in my job. And I'm making a contribution. My years of service, my years and time and position matter. They do want to be heard. So I really would encourage that appraisal process still to continue.
May I have a comment?
Yeah.
So one thing, and I have a smaller team, we have 10, 12 people in our team, so it might not be as realistic for some of the people here, but if there's some certain departments that can benefit from it, we do either monthly or quarterly check-ins, and so it doesn't really associate money side.
Right.
You know, it's a realignment, you know, it's a check-in.
Right.
And maybe it's time to as well, but
Yeah.
If you're doing them just once a year, that's a long time
It is a long
to
time.
do an evaluation where
Yeah.
you're at. So
Yeah.
that's something I really appreciate.
Exactly. And I appreciated that too. Even, being in senior level position, you still want to hear from your direct supervisor that, you're in the right direction. You're still meeting the needs of the organization or the needs of your position, or being able to talk about, things that have worked, maybe not worked, how you're going to realign them, and then continuing that learning process. So another study notes that when reviews were ceased, companies found a need for a form of annual documented administrative evaluations to make employment decisions, promotions, and raises. So even though many of them said, no, we don't want to do them, we still have to have something, whether that's full performance management process that includes the whole goal setting, or you just have a whole straight goal setting process and you meet at a regular interval, as Roy has indicated, that his organization does. And then your achievement of those strategic goals are how you are evaluated and therefore compensated. So those systems, which was just another type of an evaluation, it was just kind of like, it was out there, but not really anything formal. It was just kind of behind the scenes and really nothing that was overly documented. Okay. So the next question, does your organization currently have an established compensation program or matrix? Yes, no, we're looking to establish one, or we're looking to revise. Now, for all of you here from the state of California, you know that that is required when you post a position, you have to post the compensation. That is required. So you need to make sure that your compensation levels for that position are pretty right on the money. You do have some flexibility, but you do want to have pretty accurate wage ranges that you're going to state for your open position. So
Kim chimed in on chat and she says, I do weekly check-in with my accounting manager and she does a monthly sit down with her direct reports. I'm a firm believer that there should be no surprises at the annual evaluation. Accomplishments should be recognized as they occur, as should areas that need to be changed or addressed.
exactly, Kim, I couldn't agree more with your comments. So this is really, really important. And this happens every single day. I know in my roles in HR over the years, that's important for HR to be involved and be part of that communication process, and also supporting the supervisors and managers out there that are having those discussions and having that conversation that I could go to, let's say, to Carol Ann and say, I know you're working on this particular process or goal, how is it going? And I know many times the employee will look at me like, how is it you know that I'm working on that particular goal? Well, because I was part of that conversation with that manager to understand not only Carol Ann's performance, but also what are her goals for the year and how are those conversations going, and being another arm of support to say, keep going. If you're running into stumbling blocks, put your hand up, let us know, and be part of that process. So it's not just the direct supervisor, but all of us as HR professionals in whatever scope we're in to be a part of that process. That's really important. Okay, so 9%, either revise or establish one. That's going to be really important to do that, because that will help you stay on track and make sure from an equitability standpoint that you're able to look at for all of your, let's say, project managers that you have in a particular area. Are their wages kind of like this, or are they pretty close? You're going to have some anomalies, but that could be because of years of experience or education, other certifications that they may have that are going to make them outside of that kind of that norm. But that's really, really important. Plus, it's something that you have to continually work at and look at on an ongoing basis to make sure that when the market fluctuates, you're also going to fluctuate and look at your matrix to make sure that you're within the money. And then also establish what is your company's benchmark as far as what is the market telling you, but also what can you as an organization want to have as far as your minimum, mid, and maximum levels of compensation. So again, determine if the wage changes will be handled at the review or appraisal period, establish annual compensation, review increase levels based on company performance. Again, what does that look like? It's individual for every company. Look at the COLA, that's important. I know it's 2% this year. It definitely took a dive from 2 or 3 years ago. Overall performance review rating versus the increase, and establish wage ranges by position, location, and experience. Okay, so the benefits, communication is number one. It opens up that dialogue that we have between our managers and supervisors and our staff. And where the employee is performing well or has areas to improve, which we all do, okay? I can certainly attest to that. Allowing the employee to provide feedback and interest in growth and future aspirations. I don't know of any employee who is happy to continue to do the same job, you know, for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. That's rare. They always want to say, I want to move up, I want to grow, I want to learn, I want to develop myself. I want to increase my earning opportunity. You know, because it's a benefit not only to me, but to my family. That's very important. Discuss in detail growth of learning opportunities, as well as review compensation changes and future promotions. They're again to work with. Provides the feedback, both positive and for improvement to the employee, and creates an open dialogue for everyone. And again, there should be no surprises. We don't want surprises at the end. I've been in that situation before where I got a performance appraisal and was like, do you even know me? Do you know what I've done? I was like shocked. It's like, no, you're talking about somebody else, but it's not me. And not having an opportunity to be part of that process or to have that discussion or that dialogue, okay, was very eye-opening. And that was early in my career, in my retail life. And then when I got into HR, I was like, okay, I'm going to be working on changing that conversation. Okay, so types of performance reviews and appraisals. So, Roy, this is getting in your realm. So you have the 360-degree, a team evaluation, project-based, mid-year, annual, and leadership. And I think most of us probably are very familiar with the whole annual. Many organizations, depending upon if it's like, say, a large construction company, they may do a project-based because they have a team or a group of individuals that are working on a specific project, and they have benchmarks that are included with those. So that would be something that would be project-based. Okay, so a 360 is when the feedback for an employee is solicited from various colleagues. So from direct reports and coworkers, managers, and from all different levels, anybody that the person has any interaction with. So that's really good because you get a different perspective because your relationship with each one of those individuals is so vastly different. And you interact with them on a different level. So it's really great to see, and then you can mirror all those evaluations together and kind of see, are there those commonalities, or do you have really big swings of perception or an evaluation? So communication skills, interpersonal, soft skills, collaboration and teamwork, leadership and management capabilities, innovation and creativity, business goals, company culture. Many of them focus on those particular areas. They may focus on a larger scope. You can do many of them where you can add particular areas depending upon what sort of information are you wanting to download, especially if you have that conflict situation again, where you have a conflict with a group of employees and a particular supervisor. Then I know as I said before, working with Lois, she's been able to add a lot of that information on to create more of a specific 360 to be able to pull that information out. So establish the competencies per function and include the 3 to 4 behaviors per competency and with open feedback. So that's where that communication would happen with the 360. So you want to engage all the stakeholders when you are wanting to do a 360 to make sure everybody's comfortable with doing that. Define what the success looks like, create the urgency and reward, plan those follow-ups. What is the development versus the evaluation? What do you want to achieve? Integrate goals and competencies. Does everybody use competencies in their performance evaluations or in their job descriptions? Because that's really, really important to be able to use those competencies. Relevant content, values, and competencies of the company. What do those look like? Because if our employees are not supporting the company's competencies or the company's strategic goals, there's definitely a disconnect. Accountability, so the employee can be accountable for the feedback and the participation that requires all parties to participate. This is something that's really, really critical that everybody understands the importance of the 360 review, because you want them to be open and honest regarding their feedback and their evaluation. This is not a time, okay, I'm really gonna give it to this supervisor because I don't like them or I've had bad interactions. The feedback needs to be open and honest and professional.
The reward is that to get people to participate in that,
Yes, yes.
gift cards or lunch.
Yeah, and again, it's part of the communication process that HR and that senior manager is going to do with the team to say, this is what we want to do, this is our objective. And we want to be able to continue that open dialogue, that open communication, and making sure that everybody is communicating at the right levels. So a team review, that would be done during a team performance review. A manager gives feedback to the entire team. So let's say you have a service department and you have a specific area of your service department that does a particular function, and you are evaluated on your customer service level, your turnaround, your contact. When there are problems arising, are we able to get back to that organization within a timely manner? What does that benchmark look like? Is it a 12-hour? Is it a 24-hour? Is it immediate? You know, again, many of us are not 24/7 companies, and maybe you are. Not everybody works 24/7. So you have a third-party company that comes in and handles those after-hours calls, but somebody's got to take that call from that third party and be able to respond. So what does that look like? These team performance review questions should focus on determining each member's skills and contributions, as well as how they've been working together as a unit. Even though you have different parts of that team and each member performs a different function, where you have maybe one or two that are doing the same job, but are they working harmoniously together and contributing to the next part of the team or the next member of the team? Individual contributions, those need to be called out, not just as a team, but what did that individual do to go above and beyond? And then process improvement, look at the successes, the collaboration, the factors that cause the team not to achieve the objectives or the future goals. What personal contributions as a whole did you make? So these are some of the questions that you can ask on a team review. What ways can you improve with the team? What success did the team have? Okay. What issues that caused the team not to meet their goals? In what ways can the team work together more seamlessly? And again, that's going to be asking those questions. How can the company support the team in reaching the team goals in the future? So we had to do it all over again. What would we do differently? Project-based, as I mentioned before, many organizations that have specific project-based items that have a leader and then your core group that work with you, and you have benchmarks that are set by the company that you're doing that project for. In order to meet those objectives, you would use this project-based appraisal. So employees are evaluated based on their work on one specific project. It's not about how they've been doing overall, but how the team succeeded on this one task or in this one project. And as such, the employee review should be centered around how they contributed to complete the project and their thoughts on the process and the final result.
So would a company do project-based evaluations at the end of every project and then maybe an annual review?
Yes.
Overview?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the questions would be, what is the work to complete the project, the skill level in handling the project, assistance from others, the overview of the work that went into the project, and what would they do differently if presented with the same project? What they want to do. A mid-year, so instead of waiting a whole year, you can do like every 6 months. So that creates a much shorter window, but that doesn't mean that you don't want to have conversation with that employee throughout the course of the year to touch base on goals or objectives or strategic items that you want that individual to work on or to improve upon. So that goes halfway through the annual work cycle. This review is an opportunity for employers and employees to assess progress towards goals, objectives, and performance expectations set at the beginning of the year. I know one manager that I worked with did this, even though we did our annual reviews and we did our goal settings and they had their, daily conversations and twice a month they sat down and had like 15, 20 minutes, just kind of quick touch base. But then he decided to, okay, if I had to write the performance review today, what would it look like? And he decided to kind of do a very, quick overview and sat down and said, okay, here's where you are so far. Okay, this is where you've improved. This is where you're still struggling. This is what you've achieved so far. And it was such a breath of fresh air for that group of employees. They were like, this is great. We want to have this conversation. We want to be able to talk about, what we feel we're doing well with and on, but also I needed that kick to kind of get me remotivated to work on those areas of opportunity. So it's that checkpoint process. So the performance to date, their biggest achievement, what they want to do in the next 6 months, maybe they need to revamp their goals. The overall workload, that could be something that could cause them not to achieve those goals because you have staffing issues, so therefore more and more work comes on that one person. So it's harder for them to achieve their goals. What have you learned? What are your takeaways? And have your personal goals aligned with your work to date? Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. And so again, it's that opportunity to take that deeper dive. What has been the feedback that you've received so far? And that reinforcement of that team collaboration happens. And of course, the annual that we all know and love. That happens once a year. And again, we don't want any of those surprises. That is never a good thing. Okay, what has been your greatest strength? What's been your greatest opportunity? Ways to improve in your current role, and again, personal goals to accomplish. And leadership performance appraisals have a whole different mindset and look because many of them are in senior level positions that are responsible for a significant amount of the company's overall success from a monetary standpoint and also from a customer service standpoint. So their reviews are going to look much, much different as far as what they're being held accountable for. A lot of it's going to be financial, a lot of it's going to be strategic goals, customer service, and how effectively do they communicate not only to the teams, but also externally the company's vision, mission, and values. That is something that's important and needs to be included in all performance appraisals. So their leadership is the ability to drive organizational change, manage resources efficiently, and uphold and propagate the company values. This tailored approach recognizes the broader influence and higher level of responsibilities of leadership, ensuring that their evaluations are both relevant and impactful. So the preparation is to clarify the company objective to align with strategic goals. Managers need to educate and have clarity on the process. Communication is key, especially in the delivery. That is so very important. It has to be positive, even when you're talking about the tough stuff. It has to be positive and professional. Open-ended conversations Employees want to be heard. They want to know that their self-assessment is being taken seriously. Their strengths and opportunities, skill versus their motivation. Maybe they're motivated, but they don't have the skill in which to do it. They need some additional L&D, learning and development of their own. And what does that look like? And who is going to help in that L&D process? Is the employee on the right seat on the bus? All heard that comment. Okay. Maybe they're not right for that position, but perhaps they're right for another position. And what could that be? What does that look like? Continue to motivate your star performers. Keep them going. Does your organization currently have an established goal setting process? Well, those that answered no, I would definitely encourage you to look at establishing a goal setting process and creating that foundation as part of your performance management process. If that's included in your performance appraisal process, whatever that looks like, or you have separate document to then align those goals and be able to measure those goals and use that as a living, breathing, working document as part of that goal setting process, so that when your next review period comes up, whatever that looks like and whatever the time frame is, that you are then able to have that goal setting document and those previous conversations already documented. And establishing those intervals are really, really critical. So connect the employee's goals with the company objectives. Make sure those are always the forefront. Set those SMART goals. All heard this before. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. Reward the employees who reach their goals. That could be done in a variety of different ways. Celebrate those wins and those opportunities and share that with the team to say, hey, this is a goal that Roy has established for himself. And today we had our touch base session and he's met all the objectives. We want to celebrate and create that, that attaboy, have the balloons and the confetti and whatever else in the office to celebrate that. That's important. And when your employees see that recognition and that acknowledgement of that hard work and dedication to achieve that goal, that's a big motivator. Track goals progress regularly. Start this sooner rather than later. And again, the timing, some do weekly, some do bi-monthly, sometimes monthly. You have to establish a time frame that's going to work for all of you. And it's important that once you establish it, that you put it on the calendar and you make it happen, unless such things happen that are out of your control, but then make sure that you get back to that employee at a reasonable time afterwards. And help the employees visualize success. What does it look like? And make it manageable, okay? What they say, you eat the elephant one bite at a time, you don't eat the whole elephant. So again, very strategic goal setting process as far as taking one bite at a time. As I said, Rome wasn't built in a day. So performance feedback, positive feedback, and feedback for improvement. Positive feedback is always great to be able to give to somebody. And you want to do it in front of everyone and share that positive feedback and those wins. But when the feedback for improvement is still positive feedback, that's harder to give, but more important to give. That feedback for improvement. Okay. what is that feedback that you're giving? What does that look like? Okay, what is that impact? As far as that feedback, like that cause and effect. And reinforcement of goals and expectations, that cause versus effect. Doing this has this effect. Not only for you, but potentially for others. And sometimes in those feedback processes, especially for improvement, and having worked with Carol Ann previously, and working in not only the HR, but in the risk and safety, sometimes you have to say, you have to do it. There's just no other choice, because there is a cause and effect that could be detrimental. It's not like, well, if you want to, no, it's something that has to be done. So you have to make those determinations. And of course, we apply those reassurance and commitment to support the employee in that ongoing daily communication, their one-on-one meetings, team meetings. I know a director of service in my last company used to have those weekly meetings and talk about those goals and talk about specifically the goals for the department that everybody was a part of, and had different pieces of that departmental goal, and talked about those achievements, making sure that those are always communicated. And remember, all feedback is good feedback. Okay. So develop your appraisal process. What is the format? Do you have an HRIS system that has capabilities of doing your performance management process? So your HR system that's like tied into your payroll system, that you can then put all your documents on, and then you can actually do your self-appraisal. You can do the supervisor can do their appraisal online, that has all of your criteria built into it. Okay. Schedule and your compensation process. What do those look like? Communicate. So you want to conduct the training for all employees. So how can you expect them to do a self-appraisal and understand what they should appraise themselves on if they don't understand, first of all, their job description and the things that they're being held accountable for, along with the core competencies that belong with that position. One of the areas of competency that I know I put on all of our performance job descriptions was ethical conduct. That was on everybody's job description, didn't matter what position, because that was important for our CEO and president, that your ethical conduct, your integrity was that part of his core foundation of his organization. So we put that on every job description. So you want to do the training for all the employees. And again, you'd want to do your hourly team versus your salary team, your leadership team, all a little bit different. Roles and responsibilities for everyone, where to find their forms, when and whom to submit, all the timeframes, and provide the instructions. And then, of course, train your managers on the same process. Document, retain all your records to track the progress, useful for future growth potential opportunities. That's one thing I always use, is to pull up the goals and also the performance evaluation and the job description every time to talk about it in an employee's performance. Let's look at all the past history. What are some of the commonalities?
Good question.
Yes.
How long do we keep the performance review after the employee leaves?
Well, you have a retention, you should have a retention schedule, and typically it's 2 to 3 years after, or sometimes.
If the
7
employee
years.
there is 20 years, we would keep the first evaluation?
Yeah, you'd want to keep everything. You want to keep everything. You want to see
Okay.
that progress. Because their position may have changed, so therefore
True.
their
And we want to
Your
see growth,
evaluation,
of course.
yeah,
Okay,
just put it in their performance file,
right.
so. Useful for future growth, promotional opportunities, and you can develop your templates for job expectations. Stay focused, especially during difficult reviews. And this is where having those conversations to review the performance appraisals prior to the delivery, not only with that direct supervisor, but also with that senior level executive and HR, you go through every single performance review so that you're seeing not only what the appraisal has been as far as what level are they meeting the expectations, are they going above the expectations, but also is the verbiage supporting that overall rating, and is it clear? Sometimes you can say, okay, needs improvement, but then the comments are, this person is stellar. So you want to make sure everything is equitable and level. Discuss the issues and comments with the manager and the direct supervisor, and make sure that they are fair and equitable as far as the ratings and the comments. So what are your next steps? Further development in the current role in the future. Goal setting, partnership, and continuous improvement, and continuous dialogue, establishing realistic intervals, and adhere to your schedule. The one-on-one time is important, and keep engaging. Every day is important to continue to engage as far as your employees, and providing them encouragement, providing them feedback, and letting them know that their success is part of your success. And that is extremely rewarding for someone who's been in the HR realm for as many years as I have. And it's unfortunate when that process has not been done, and all of a sudden that performance appraisal comes through and it's needs improvement or something even far worse. And then you are looking at, okay, is this person being evaluated fairly? Are we, at that point in time, you don't want to do a PIP, a performance improvement plan. You wanted to do that a long time ago. I haven't seen many PIPs be beneficial outside of looking to then separate somebody's employment, and that's always a tough situation. That's why that constant communication, that constant fostering of development and encouragement, and that can make this happen. You have the opportunity to do it. And where are those frustrations happening? And not letting those frustrations take hold of that individual to not achieve their strategic goals or the things that they want to learn and grow and work and develop on, so that they can continue to work to the next level, and not only in the position, but also be happy and satisfied with the company that they work for, that causes less turnover, less employee difficulties, and just creates a much more harmonious work environment, and one that is supportive and helpful and continually engaging and communicating on a daily basis. And that happens at every level of the organization. So there's an HR objective that is to coach your managers and supervisors on the review appraisal process, provide training on the giving and receiving of feedback, prepare for those difficult conversations to help navigate any potential legal issues ahead of time, provide guidance on goal setting, keeping in mind the company's overall objectives to assure alignment, and ask for feedback on the review appraisal process to both managers and employees, and look for ways to improve the process going forward. It's not a one size fits all. Your company's culture and objectives and who they are within the community is going to be definitely reflected in your performance appraisal process. And provide continual support and communication of employees' goals and objectives.
Kim mentions in here, it's also important to document the meetings you have with the employees who are having performance issues. I also have them sign the written documentation of these difficult conversations.
Exactly. You always want to have those things documented. So. Okay. Open for questions for the next minute or two. One of the respectful of people's times here this morning.
Are we getting, the presentation, is it available in email?
Yes, we can send that out, and then Amanda will be sending out the presentation along with some examples of performance evaluations and also goal setting forms. And then for those of you that are here in person today, we do have copies available. We can also send those out via email as well. So you can take a look at it. Again, every organization is going to develop your own, but we wanted to provide some examples, some that I found online through the various resources that I used for today's presentation, along with what I've learned over the years, as well as some of the forms that I've developed over the years as well. Yes.
What would you say has changed the most in terms of employee reviews?
For me personally, it's been the whole goal setting process and the whole engagement. In my early years, as far as being employed, and my first job was 16. And there really wasn't that much of a whole performance management, process. Either you're doing well or you're not doing well. And, you heard from your supervisor accordingly. And then as I began my career, as I got older in larger companies, that became more of a focus. And I must say within probably the last 10 to 15 years, it has become more streamlined and more dedicated to the organization and more representative. And I know in my hospitality career, where Carol Ann and I worked before, that was something that I really strove to work on to make sure that the appraisal process was reflective of not only what the person did as far as their position and their responsibilities along with their job description, but also to make sure that it aligned with the organization. And I think that's where I've really seen the changes over the years for the performance management process, that it's not just a one and done. It is more on a day in and day out basis, keeping that lines of communication open, making sure that your fellow team members are there supporting that process. Your managers are part of that process, and that it is a daily part of what it is that they do, and that's on their checklist. Yes, Amanda.
Tracy Yoder says, can you suggest your favorite HRIS system that you would recommend for performance management?
Oh, there's been so many that I've used over the years, and they've changed so much. So I know ADP has a pretty good system. I know Paycom has a pretty good system. So again, that's something we can explore more on a one-on-one if Tracy, if you would like to, we can certainly look at that. So many of the companies are doing that now, or you may even have some ideas or suggestions too that you can offer to the team.
Yeah, I don't have any firsthand knowledge, just from pulse check in the area. I know a lot of people like Paycor.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah.
Just as an overall system, because
Yeah.
it can be created employee evaluations, but
Yes.
for other areas. So
Yeah.
I definitely just put it on the reps that you're interviewing and have them provide.
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
examples.
That would be something that you would probably want to schedule meetings with those individuals if you're looking to make any kind of a change, because you would want your payroll and your HRIS system to work hand in hand and not have two different operating systems. That could be quite a bit. Workforce is another one that works really well. I know they have offices here in Dublin. So I worked with them for a time period in hospitality.
Cheryl with Oak Valley Community Bank said they currently use ADP, but they just invested in Quantum for this year. Stephanie Adams said, thank you so much for the helpful presentation, and that they use Gusto.
Okay.
So those are just some other ones.
And some could be regional as well. I know ADP is across the country, Paycor is not across the country, but there may be some that are here more West Coast again, it's something that your operations and your finance person and the HR team would have to globally work together on with whoever your senior CEO or president is.
So there's, Mary Ann, just to testify, I worked with her, yes, and I saw her, what she did in the hospitality industry with the company we worked with. She realigned, she was able to bring everyone together, globally focused on what is the company's mission, vision, and values, and how does everyone fit in that? And from that, you are then evaluated and most importantly, how can we support you as the individual to achieve the overall goal? And she was instrumental in that, and I still use it today. So I think that was great, and I don't know if that's still how businesses are. Are they still aligning with their mission, their vision, values? And maybe we can then grow from there.
Yeah, that's definitely important. And thank you, Carol Ann, very much for those kind words. It is very important to make sure that your overall company culture is very much a part of this appraisal performance management process. Because if you say you've established your vision, mission, and values, and your performance appraisal or your performance management process is on the opposite side, it's never going to be successful. It has to be part of that process.
Are we over?
We're a little over, but I mean, it's.
Yeah, we can continue the discussion. I don't know if anybody's still online or
Yeah,
or not.
we're still here.
Okay, so yeah.
Just a question. What advice would you give people in this room, people here, to get maybe supervisors to buy into this? Or do you just direct them and tell them, or is it? Because I can relate or understand that certain companies, you have supervisors in the seat that have been there for 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
It's a struggle to get them to see what you see. So besides giving a little gift card or an award or something like that, can you share maybe some perspective you might bring into?
One of the things that I did at my last employer with ABCO, there was an established HR person in the role, and that person went into the educational role for our company, because that's where her background and her love was. So I had already come into a pretty well-established HR department. One of the things that I did take a look at was, first and foremost, the job descriptions, and really based the whole performance management process and looking at every single job description for the positions that were within the company at that particular time. And they were a couple of years old in some cases, some were a little bit newer. However, what I wanted to do, and it was a pretty large undertaking, was to rewrite the whole job description. And then again, looking at what are those core competencies. So in having that conversation with those key managers and supervisors and some of the senior leadership, say, okay, let me do a couple of job descriptions in ways that I had done them before, and reading the current job description and looking at some of the core competencies and adding those into the job description, and then presenting them to that manager or supervisor or to the COO and the CFO and so forth. Say, okay, here's the one that you're currently operating on. Here's the one I've put together. Is this the position? Is this the position, or is this the position? And help me figure out what is still viable versus what is not viable, because the roles change. The company changes. So that has to be a living, breathing, working document. And when something that's on a job description that is no longer applicable, then that is where we have to then say, okay, that needs to come off and something else needs to go on, and reestablish it, and then resend that out to those that are fulfilling those roles. And really getting them involved in helping me edit those and create those and formulate those then was my into then the whole performance management process. Say, okay, here's the appraisal form. It includes all the things that the job description said that they need to do that to be able to hold them accountable for, along with the culture, those things that vision, mission, and values. And again, establishing the goal setting process, which had already been established. So it was just taking it to the next level. So that's really where I kind of started the foundation and then found it much easier to be inclusive in that process. And that's what I did when I worked in the hospitality for Randall along with Carol Ann. That's how we started that whole process.
Because you're bringing value at that point to the
Yes.
managers.
Because I don't know what that person's job is. I hadn't done it before, so it was a learning process for me as well. You know, say, okay, this is what it says on paper, but is that reality? Whether it's the project manager or a coordinator or what it was. Yeah, so that really has worked best for me to get them involved. It's like, I need some help. I'm not the be all end all as far as these positions. And I need to learn and to ask questions. And I need to go to the individuals who do the job and who supervise the job. Any other questions? Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks to everybody who was online. Sorry you couldn't be with us here in the offices today, but appreciate all of you come in today and taking the time to be here and to participate. I appreciate it very much. Look forward to doing some more in the future. Thank you.